Halloween is my favorite holiday, so today I thought I'd show you how to make a custom Halloween decoration using materials you can find in nature. We're going to be making a spooky skeleton Halloween decoration, but not like the cheapo plastic ones you can find in the stores. This one includes real bones. On the table in front of me, I've got an assortment of animal bones that I found outside. I've got the head and jaw of a squirrel that I found dead in my backyard, and also the arm and leg bones and the vertebrae from a snapping turtle that I found washed up on the edge of a pond. The first thing that I needed to do after finding the dead animals was clean the bones. The first important thing to remember when cleaning animal bones is that you just want the bones. So that means if you need to leave the dead animal outside a little longer so that the microbes and scavengers can eat the rest of the meat and the cartilage off of the bones, do that first. But once you've got the bones clear of all of that gunk, you're going to want to put them in some sort of container that won't hold the smell. So I have a glass container here, and I'm going to put some dish soap in and then some warm water. Not boiling water, that'll make the bones really gross and weird. So just warm water and soap and the bones and let them sit for like a week or so. You can check on the bones in the soapy water. If they need it, you can give them a scrub with like an old toothbrush or something just to help get all of the gunk off. But once they've been soaking and you sort of touch them and they don't really feel greasy anymore and they're not quite as like dirty, you know that they're pretty good to go. So then you can move on to the next step. So take them out of the soapy water and rinse them off, and then you're going to put them back in a clean container. I just rinsed it out and used the same glass container again with some 3% hydrogen peroxide. That's the kind of hydrogen peroxide you can just buy in the drugstore. 3%. You want to completely cover the bones in the hydrogen peroxide because that is what's going to bleach them, and then leave them for like 3 or 4 more days. Now that the bones are pretty and they smell nice, it's time to assemble our Franken creature. My friends have decided I should call this a squirtle because it's part squirrel and part turtle. I'm going to use some super glue and some wire to assemble the bones into this sort of skeleton animal thing. But before I get started, you might want to come on in here so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing I'm going to do to assemble our creature is to reassemble the head. The teeth on the squirrel skull and jaw sort of came out during the cleaning process, so I'm going to use a little bit of super glue on the inside edge of each of the teeth, and I'm going to put them back into the slots that they came out of and just wait until they're set. Once those 2 big top teeth and the 2 big bottom teeth are set back in the parts of the skull where they belong, it's time to put the jaw back onto the skull. So you can sort of figure out by wiggling around how the jaw fits back into the skull. There should be little divots or probably holes in the bottom of the skull and some bumps in the edge of the jaw that sort of click together. And you could probably just sort of click them in like that and they might stay, but I'm going to use a little bit of super glue just to make sure that the jaw stays attached to the skull. So now we'll move on to the parts of the turtle that I have. So I've got a whole bunch of the vertebrae, or like the spinal column of the turtle. And again, I'm going to use the same trick that I did to put the jaw back onto the skull of the squirrel. You sort of wiggle around and click the vertebrae back into place because they're all nested. It's kind of like building a linear puzzle. So I'll click all of the vertebrae into place so that they're nested. And then I'm going to use a little bit of super glue on the sort of ball and socket joints of all of the vertebrae to get them to stick together. I'm also going to use a little bit of wire to help hold the vertebrae together, especially at the joints where I'll be attaching the leg bones later on. Alright, so this is what our finished assembled spinal column looks like. You can see where I've got it glued together at the joints and also where I've wired it together just for some extra stability. So now I'd like to attach the skull to one end of the spinal column, and there's a hole in the back of the skull where the squirrel spinal column would have attached. I'm just going to put some glue on the ball end of the turtle spinal column, and hopefully they'll be close enough in size that if I kind of hold them together for a minute, eventually the glue should stick them together. So even though these are parts of 2 different animals, they're close enough in size that this should work. Once the head is firmly attached to the spinal column, we can move on to giving this guy some legs so that it actually stands up. So I've got the arm and leg bones from the snapping turtle, and I'm going to sort of arrange them here under the spinal column to make it stand up. So I think I'm going to use these sort of broader parts of the legs sort of to create a stand for the spinal column. And once I figure out how I want the leg bones to attach to the spinal column, I'm going to get out some pretty fine gauge wire again and my pliers, sort of twist some wire around the bones to create a sort of set point, and then use the wire to attach the leg bones to the spaces in the vertebrae. So I'll do one on each side of the front. All right, now that the front legs look pretty good, it seems pretty stable, and I could, again, probably just leave it like this. It looks like the back end of the spinal column rests on the table nicely and is supported by these two front legs, but I'm going to give it some back legs just for a little more stability. So I'll use the other set of snapping turtle leg bones and do the same thing to wire them a little farther back on the spinal column. Now our skeleton is standing up pretty nicely. It seems very stable. It's got those nice four legs on it, and the spinal column seems to be holding firm with that super glue. So I could just leave it like this, but I have another trick up my sleeve. I also have the scapulas, or the shoulder blades from the snapping turtle, and I think that these would make some pretty cool looking wings to give this sort of a draconic appearance, as it were. So I'm going to use a little bit more wire to attach the two snapping turtle shoulder blades to the area just behind those front legs on the creature. And there's the finished product. Arm and leg bones look good. The teeth in the front are nice and spooky. I'm pretty happy with it. Of course, whatever you create is going to look different based on whatever animal bones you find, but I'd love to see pictures of your creations on Facebook and Twitter. If you want to spice up your skeleton Halloween decoration, you could wrap red or black lace around it, or you could put LEDs in the eye sockets. I hope you enjoyed this DIY skeleton creature creation video. I'm pretty happy with this little guy. I think he's gonna look great with the rest of my Halloween decorations. And I hope I've inspired you to infuse a little more nature into your fall festivities. This video was actually part of a collaboration with the We Create EDU group. It's a group of all other YouTube creators who do educational content, and the theme for this collaboration, of course, was Halloween. There's a link to the playlist down in the description or up here in the cards. You should go check out the other videos in this Halloween playlist because they're made by a lot of fun creators who do great stuff. There's going to be a lot of spooky, funny content, so please go check them out. If you're new here, think about hitting that subscribe button. I really appreciate it, and you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I'll see you in the next one.